Good morning, everyone. So, I had this experience where I thought I was going to talk about one thing, and that's not what's happening. Um, I thought I was going to talk about the beauty, the goodness, the truth that is God. But as I was working on everything, working on my class and trying to bring the talk together, it was like the talk wasn't happening. And I was like, okay. So I have learned not to force. But that's a really good idea to talk about the beauty, goodness, and truth. I know about the beauty, goodness, and truth. Why can't I talk about it? We're not going to force anything today. So today I'm going to talk about what it looks like to live a bodacious and audacious life. Not just what does it look like, but what does it feel like? What does it taste like? What does it smell like? What are the sounds that you hear when you are living, truly living a bodacious and audacious life? To live an audacious life is to live a life of integrity, to live to start on an adventurous journey. And so there's this excitement that is around it. It's not just, oh, we're just gonna, live life. Just gonna kind of sit back and see what happens. In the Gospel of Thomas, it says that the kingdom of heaven is within us and all around us. It says that Yeshua says, if a teacher tells you that the kingdom of heaven is in the sky, then the birds have gotten there before you. And if they say that the kingdom of heaven is in the seas, well, the fish know it before you. It says the kingdom of heaven is within and all around. And I think that it is the combination of the two that is so vitally important. We do a lot of talking in unity about the kingdom of heaven being within us, about the Christ presence being within us, and living from that Christ presence. And absolutely, yes, that's true. But to truly live a bodacious and audacious life, we have to be able to see the kingdom of heaven out there. So, I'm going to invite you to think for just a moment. Is what you are seeing out there or in your daily life, are you recognizing the kingdom of heaven? Or are we getting caught up in what someone else is doing or not doing? How someone else is different than we are? How, age difference, the generation gap, that's what it's called, the generation gap, or people who have tattoos, or people who have piercings, or people of a different ethnicity, or people who are Republican, or people who are Democrat, or people who are different in some way. Are we getting caught up in the externals and not recognizing the kingdom of heaven? The kingdom of heaven is all around you. So how do we recognize it? Part of that scripture in the Gospel of Thomas, he says that the important piece in order to recognize the kingdom of heaven is to know yourself. To know yourself. Now that's not just, oftentimes when people have said, we need to know ourselves. You need to know yourself. I thought of personality. What are my personality traits? What are my likes and my preferences, and how do I express in the world? That's knowing myself. That's knowing myself on a minuscule level. In 1 Corinthians 13, which is known as the love chapter, it says, Paul is talking about what love is. Mostly, actually, he's talking about what love is not. But then he goes into this, that some people will have the gifts of prophecy and tongues and these different things, these different ways of expressing. And everything will pass away. That all of that is going to pass away. But 3 things will remain: faith, hope, and love. 3 things remain: faith, hope, and love. So I want to begin with hope, because hope gets kind of I think it's underestimated as a power, as a gift that is within us. These are gifts that each of us has within us. And there is not a person who has more of it than you do. Or there is not a person who has less of it than you do. No matter how they are appearing, it may be dormant. They may not be activating it. They may not be expressing it. But that doesn't mean that it's less. We each have the same amount of God within us. And faith, hope, and love is the essence of what God is. So if faith, hope, and love is the essence of what God is, then hope cannot be wishful thinking for something in the future. Yet isn't that what we're taught that hope is? Oh, I hope that someday. I hope that this works out somehow. I hope. With kind of a belief underneath it that there's no way it's going to happen. That's not the hope that is the hope of God. The hope of God is actually, the Greek word is elpis, which means joyous expectation. It's a joyous expectation of what is happening now. Not in the future. And it's not celebrating what was in the past. It is the joyous expectation of what is happening right now. Because it is happening within us. And it is happening in the ethers all around us. So when we hope, there is a spark that happens within us. We get that divine idea. We get that new idea. And it ignites that hope. Do you know that human beings cannot exist without hope? If you really think about it, we cannot exist without hope. It is one of the core essences of what we are that makes us human. We hope. And hope intricately works with our imagination. Because when we hope hope for something, then we get a picture. We get this picture in our mind of what it could be. What could be. What is possible. So we get this picture in our mind of what's possible, and then we engage our faith. We engage our faith, and we believe that it is possible. Faith is the essence of things hoped for. So faith is that energy that works with the substance, that works with the invisible realm to bring to us, to bring into form that which we hope for. It brings it into the physical realm. And that can be anything. It can be a healing of relationships. It can be financial. It can be anything. We don't limit it. One of the questions as I was contemplating on all of this, one of the questions that arose for me was, how big is your God? How big is your God? Almost every Sunday, we affirm that there is one presence and one power. Now, there's another way that this is said. It is said there is one presence, one power, active in the universe and in my life. Active, not dormant. That this one presence and one power is active. And we have faith in that presence. But how big is our God? Do we have a challenge or do we see a challenge in the world today that we say, well, God can handle a lot of things, but not that. And we may not even say that in those words, but do our attitudes and actions speak to that? Do our attitudes and actions show up as, well, there's no hope there. There's no hope for change there. Whatever it is. And it's okay. Because if we are aware that we have been thinking of God as being too small, that's when we are empowered to change that thought. But until we recognize that we are thinking that God is too small, there's no change that happens. Nothing shifts. But when we look at that and can be honest with ourselves and we can say, I guess I've been thinking that God can handle this over here, but not this over here. Or there's those times where we say, okay, God, I'm going to give this over. I'm going to turn this over. And I'm going to surrender it so that I can make space in my life for that divine idea to come in, give me new hope, a new vision of what can be. And we're all excited about turning it over and surrendering, and then 5 minutes later we go, yeah, God, I'd like to have that back now, because I need to worry about it a little more before I can give it up. And that's okay too. Because every time we have an awareness, we have a choice. But unless we're aware, there's no choice. We just keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting results to be different. And what did they say about insanity? So recognizing, asking ourselves the question, whatever it is that is that big thing that we feel is really big that's going on. And right now, I don't know of anybody who can't think of something that is really big that's going on. And ask yourself, is my God big enough to take care of that? Is the God that holds the planets in place, that created the universes, plural, universes, is that God big enough to handle this? Scripture tells us that no thing is impossible to God. And we exercise our faith to the degree that we have faith. And that's how it grows. That's how it grows. Faith is intricately connected to love. Because when we have faith in something, we love it. We love it. And our love grows. Charles Fillmore said that love is the great harmonizing power. That love is the healer. And so when we love, when we exercise that gift of love that comes out of the hope and the vision and the inspiration and the faith, and we love it, we draw it to, we open up the space within us to see it right here, right now. We begin to see changes. All of a sudden, somebody isn't acting the same way that they used to act that just pushed our buttons. Because we're seeing them differently. They may not even be behaving differently. Our experience of them is different. Or they may be behaving differently. Love harmonizes, holds in balance the universe and everything in it. If we just think about our bodies are incredible. The way that they work, where everything works to support every other aspect of the body. The arm doesn't say, oh, well, I'm an arm, and so I'm really special because I'm the arm. And the rest of the body just needs to do what I think it should do because I'm the arm. The rest of the body functions, everything works in tandem, intricately together. And that's how we are designed to work together too. We are designed to work together. Not to say, well, I'm just going to be off here on my little island by myself. Whenever we hold faith, hope, and love, whenever we awaken those gifts within us and we practice using them, consciously practice using them, when we do that, we open ourselves to experiencing a bodacious and audacious life, which Jesus referred to as the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom of heaven that is around us, that is within us. So I want to share with you a a reading from a renowned Buddhist practitioner and teacher, Sharon Salzberg. She wrote in her book, Faith, Trusting Your Own Deepest Experience. Just as faith brings us to steadfast love, the power of love allows us to faith. Kierkegaard wrote, hope becomes faith through love. Hope becomes faith through love. By revealing the grace of connection no matter what is happening, love releases us from our efforts to control life. Love opens our hearts wide enough to admit the unknown, the ungovernable. That openness creates the space we need to step outside our restrictive habits and come forward in faith. I loved that here's this Buddhist teacher, and she's talking about faith, hope, and love. And how those three intricately work together. So it's not, it's like, it's a universal principle. And I love it when I can find teachings in multiple traditions, because to me, it's like, yes, see how we're connected. See how we're connected. It's not us and them. It's not me and you. It's all of us. I believe that we are being called at this time to step out of our not going to say it that way. I'm going to say I think that we are being called at this time to step into a world-centric consciousness. A consciousness that is integral, which means that it is whole. Where we recognize our similarities, where we release our judgments of others, where rather than the first time that we see someone, doing an assessment really quick and deciding whether or not they fit the mold. What if they don't fit the mold? And what if we make a conscious effort to make a connection, even though they don't fit the mold? What if we discover ways of healing the world, healing our connections with others, rather than looking at those differences? Well, I'm sure that we've all had experiences where we have felt judged by someone else. And judged in the sense of coming up short, not being whatever it was that the person in front of us thought that we should be, or that we perceived that they thought we should be. And we, I'm sure, if we look at ourselves, have noticed that there are times when we are the judger. It has been a pattern that we have done for millennia. And so it's going to take a conscious effort for us to break out of that pattern. And again, I ask the question, how big is your God? Because I believe that the moment that we recognize that God presence and the power of that God presence to be with us and in us and active in us to transform the way we see the world, to help us to see the kingdom of heaven, to feel the kingdom of heaven, to hear the kingdom of heaven. That the next time that we sit down to a meal, we taste the kingdom of heaven. We experience the kingdom of heaven through our physical senses. It's not a faraway place. And we are invited to live a bodacious and audacious life. And we have the gifts within us to do that. We have everything that we need to do that. So let's take a moment and go into meditation. Because I'm going to invite us in this moment to take that question into our hearts. So I just invite you to breathe. Knowing that the breath that you breathe is the same breath that the master teachers have breathed. That within the breath there is a divine intelligence. That we breathe in and we let go. We allow this breath to take us down into our hearts, down into that sacred seat that is the Holy of Holies within us. That place within us where divine love resides. This is a holy place. And I invite you in this moment to think of something that feels big in your life. Or that feels big in the world right now. That feels out of control. And ask the question, is my God big enough to handle this? And being willing to sit with the answer. Knowing that God meets us exactly where we are. We don't have to pretend. Exactly where we are. And then I invite you to ask yourself, or ask within this sacred space, what is my hope? What is my hope? And can I allow a vision of my hope to come into my mind? As if that is happening right now in this very moment. And allow that hope to awaken the faith within us. I believe it's possible. I believe it is possible. And I love that it is possible, and I love what I hope for, and I love the divine presence that is active in this situation. That is active in this situation as hope, faith, and love. In this presence, I affirm. My eyes are open, my ears are attuned. I see the kingdom of heaven and I hear the voice of Spirit. I am strong and inspired to move forward on an adventurous journey into an audacious life. And so it is. Amen. Give him just a second. He has to turn off the recording.